Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded and expects to hit 6 million listens by the end of July 2023. We're celebrating this success by recognizing those who have shared the journey with us and giving them the opportunity to contribute to the ongoing success of the shows. By buying a paper copy of the Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a donation to help the ongoing running costs, members of the international Italian wine community will be given the chance to nominate future guests and even enter a prize draw to have lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. To find out more, visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Chin chin!
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today I'm delighted to continue our special sub-series that highlights the winners of the prestigious 5-star wines and Wines Without Walls competition that took place earlier this year. Over the course of 2 days, at the end of March, early April, just before Vinitaly, more than 2,200 wines were tasted by an international jury of wine journalists, Italian winemakers, sommeliers, Italian wine ambassadors. Those wines that scored more than 90 points were awarded certificates and will be included in the 5-star Wines and Wine Without Walls 2024 book that is coming out soon, while the very best wines in each category were singled out for special awards. The Wines Without Walls section of the 5-star competition gives recognition to the increasing range of wines produced by organic, biodynamic, sustainable, and low-intervention methods, wines that have become so much more available and important in recent years, not least as winemakers face the challenges of climate change, something we'll talk about today. Today we're traveling to the Maremma in southern Tuscany to visit the wine estate of Monteverro, which won the Wines Without Walls Award for Best Organic White Wine for its Monteverro Chardonnay Biologico, Toscana IGT. Matthieu Taunay, the winemaker at Monteverro, joins me as my guest. Many congratulations, Matthieu, to you and to the whole team. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Marc. I'm feeling very fine today. Thank you very much.
Good. Is it a warm day, Matthieu? I'm imagining you've been suffering some very hot temperatures.
Yeah, it's a warm day, but the wind just changed 2 days ago, and now it's wind from the north, so it's a dry wind. So it's much nicer than the last 10 days with the Scirocco. Scirocco is a wind from the south, and it's very humid, and it really makes a difference when you want to sleep at night.
Okay, I can understand that. And I'd like you, first of all, to take our listeners to Maremma to describe where you are. What are some of those climatic influences? You've mentioned the winds, and you're very near the Tyrrhenian Sea, looking out to the Argentario. Is that right?
Exactly. We are in Capalbio, this small medieval town in the south tip of Tuscany. We are by the sea, just in front of Monte Argentario, as I said. The winery is really seeing the sea from the vineyards. The distance probably is 2, maximum 3 kilometers from the sea. We are on a small slope facing the north of the bay. So it's facing south, actually, this vineyard. And we have now today about 40 hectares of vineyard in this property. And the back of the vineyard, then we have the hill of Monteverro. The name of the winery comes from the name of this hill, Monte, hill, Verro, the wild boar. So the hill of the wild boar, Monteverro. And on the top of this hill, Monteverro, there is a medieval village of Capalbio.
So that's a very, very good picture. I'm imagining Capalbio really looking out and You've got this beautiful position of sea and land. And what about those wild boar? Do you still have them roaming and eating the grapes?
Yes, so we have to defend ourselves by being good friend with the hunter. That's first thing, and second thing is to build a fence that is high enough and deep enough, also to protect ourselves from a wild boar. But recently, actually, we have a little bit less problematic with the wild boar because the wolf is in Maremma as well.
Oh my.
So there is many wolf here in Maremma. I've seen that there is less problematic of wild boar as well. Yeah.
Oh my. That's very, very interesting. Now tell us a little bit about Monteverro, a bit of the history of the estate. And I know you're an organic wine estate, so that's something I'd like to hear about and how some of the organic interventions that you do in the vineyard.
Exactly. So Monteverro is quite a young project because it's born in 2003 from the passion and the imagination of Georg Weber, the owner. He's German from Munich in Baviera. He discovered this place. He identified the terroir where to begin this project. And he planted, because then I arrived in 2008 in this project. So he planted the first 15 hectares in 2004, 2005, and 2006. And I entered this project in 2008 to make the first wine. So we make wine only for the last 15 years at Monteverro. So very, very, very new project.
And you were organic from the beginning?
Exactly. I wanted to tell you about this story about how we move into organic agriculture, and because until you plant your vineyard, it's very, very difficult to understand what are the capacity of your terroir, to understand how the terroir will manage all this situation with the droughts that we can have during summer here. And so it has been interesting for me for the first 2-3 vintages to understand as much as possible the terroir, to understand its capacity, to understand how to balance the vineyard. And that doing all this work, that I understand actually that, okay, now I'm organic. Because slowly I understand that by balancing the vineyard, by understanding how the soil is working, boosting the macrobiologic life of the soil, that actually I could just get out all this chemical pesticide and work only with sulfur and copper and manage easily in vineyard with only these two products. We are also using some tea, how you call that?
Like a tisane?
Yes, tisane, exactly, in French, sorry. So we call that tisane also in English, yeah?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
okay.
Is this a sort of biodynamic tisane?
No, it's not biodynamic. I mean, anyone can do that. It's just we are just getting some different kind of plants that have this anti-cryptogamic activity that helps the copper or the sulfur to being even more efficient. So by using all this, actually, after a few years, I understand that we were actually organic. So it was easy for us after 10 years to ask for the organic certification. Yes. So all the wine are organic since the vintage 2019, but they were a little bit before organic, actually.
Now, you've mentioned, I'm thinking of pest control. You've mentioned how you deal with wild boars, but what about pests in the vineyard that might have been sprayed with a chemical pesticide? How do you combat pesticides in your organic vineyard?
Actually, when I arrived here, we had a problem with mealybug. And mealybug, I understand very, very soon after not even 2 vintages that using insecticide, you don't kill mealybug with insecticide, or at least you kill mealybugs, but you don't kill the problem. After not even two vintage, it was the second vintage, I decided after the first insecticide to completely stop this insecticide. I understood that it's recreating a biodiversity in terms of insects. So in those insects, for sure, mealybug is part of it. And in a first couple of months, couple of years, mealybug, yes, will be a problem for me and it will spread. But slowly, there will be a kind of balance with all the other insects. And some of them, many of them actually, first of all, will take the place of the mealybug. So mealybug will not have so much space to develop. And secondly, in those other insects, there will be those insects that kill or eat the mealybug. And so it took me actually three other vintages to recreate a complete balance in my vineyard. And today I can tell you, I don't even, because then for 10 years, I continue to follow this problematic, to count the mealybugs, go in the vineyard, count the mealybugs in the spring, in the summer, and stuff like this. But today is not a problem anymore. And I know that there is many other vineyard here around that have this problem of mealybug. So, that gives you a hint, this kind of problematic that says that, okay, so let's try the same with other anti-cryptogamic pesticides that you use for the mildew, for example, or for the powdery mildew. And so that was exactly the same, that after a couple of years that I stopped all these chemicals and I became organic. So really recreating this balance in terms of biodiversity and recreating a balance in the plant to make sure that the plant is not too much vigorous, okay, but not even too less vigorous, okay? So the plant can defend itself against this problematic.
Okay, so a much more holistic approach to the whole environment.
I mean, it's all about prevention. It's all about putting all the situation as best as possible to prevent this problematic. When you have a vineyard that is too much vigorous, that means that, first of all, you will have too much grapes. Secondly, you will have too much leaf. And all this too much of grapes and leaves create this humid condition for the mildew to develop like hell. And in this vintage, I don't know if you heard about this problematic about mildew in 2023 in Tuscany, but in all over Italy, actually. They're speaking about 40% less, I don't believe it, but 40% less volumes in 2023 because of the mildew. So it's a big problematic. And for us, really, we lose maybe 2%, but really nothing. Yes.
My, that's incredible. It's really finding that holistic approach is helping with climate change too, because this mildew problem is happening from the extreme heat and then the crazy rains that are happening. And you're finding that although climate change is obviously an issue, this type of farming is a much more effective way of coping.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
Yes, because this kind of farming way is also working in, it's a term in French, I don't know if it's the same in English, resilience.
Yes.
When you have this kind of problematic with the climate change, with a drought, for example, that lasts for a month, 2 months, for example, during summer, I've seen that today I really have vineyards that resist more and more to this drought. So they are more and more resilient to this drought, for example, but also sometimes we have some rain because climate change is the problem is the extreme climate change. That during same vintage you have a big drought, but after you have big rains also that can happen in September, for example, during the vintage. And that happens sometimes during vintage for us to have big rain of like 80 millimeters of rain in one shot. And I've seen that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that will have been a disaster in the vineyard for the soils and for the grapes that were ripening. And today, it was actually 2 years ago, we had this rain on the last part of the vintage. So it was still a couple of hectares of Cabernet Sauvignon that needed to be harvested. 80 millimeters of rain, and I see now. I wanted to go right after. 2 days after, okay, we enter into this vineyard and we get out all these grapes and tasting the grapes and say, wow, they resist quite well, and we could have keep these grapes for another 8 days, I would say, a week for sure, probably 8 days after this rain, and they continue to maturate, to ripen without any problem.
Because of this resilience.
Yes, because of this resilience.
Now let's talk about your award-winning wine. It's a great achievement because to win the best organic white wine in the Wines Without Walls means that this wine scored the highest points of any of the other organic white wines that were submitted. And there were many good wines. I was a judge at 5-star on Wines Without Walls, so it's a very rigorous test. And the top wines then go through another tasting to ensure that they are worthy. So it's a great achievement. Tell us about this Chardonnay. I would imagine Chardonnay is not the easiest grape to grow in southern Tuscany.
Exactly. So that's why it's a great achievement, actually. You can imagine I arrived in 2008 in this project, as I told you before.
Where did you come from, Matthieu?
I come from France, as you can imagine. And but at this time, I was working in Napa Valley.
Oh, okay.
I was working with this winemaker, Jean Refliger, in Napa Valley. It was working for Alpha Omega at this time. And when I arrived in this project in 2008, when they talked to me about this project, they said about these Bordeaux varieties that they planted. They said about this Syrah and Grenache that they planted, and they said about this Chardonnay. I said, wow, Chardonnay in front of the sea, in south of Tuscany. How we gonna do? How are we gonna do? And really, it has been really a long journey to understand this variety.
Yeah.
Because Chardonnay is very versatile. Huh? You find Chardonnay in Napa Valley, in New Zealand, in South Africa, in Bourgogne, in Jura. You can find Chardonnay everywhere. But being that is not an easy variety. It's really not an easy variety. It reacts very much to the climatic conditions. So if you have a hot vintage, a cold vintage, really you can feel that in the wine, in the grapes first and then in the wine. So it has been difficult to manage the vineyard first, to have enough yield. So at the opposite of other way of thinking, for the Chardonnay, I decided to put a little bit more vigor in the vineyard, to ask a little bit more. But anyways, they are in the soil that is quite deep. There is a lot of clay, so the soil is quite already rich. So it was not a problem for the plant to support a little bit more yield. And this a little bit more yield that I asked to the Chardonnay changed the way of making this Chardonnay, because we had a little bit more acidity in the final grapes at harvest. Also, the window of harvesting was a little bit bigger, because at the very beginning, you were missing for a day, maximum 2 days, and you were really completely changing the style of the Chardonnay because of 2 days late harvesting.
So very, very small decisions make very big differences.
Yes. Very, very small decision. That was the first change that we did in the vineyards. And for sure, by year after year, vintages after vintages, I understood that I should probably harvest the Chardonnay a little bit earlier than ripe. So it's always difficult for a winemaker to say, okay, the grapes are not ripe, but I will anyway.
To keep that freshness.
Yes, I will harvest them. I took this decision as well, and that also helps the wines to have more tension. And then inside the cellar, the big decision and changes that I've been doing is, first of all, but it's not changes. It's just also here is a journey, because I was working with barrels, with different tonneliers, but then slowly you understand that these tonneliers are not good. So you are testing a new one, and it takes time, because you have only once per year that you can try a new tonnelier. So it takes time to understand which one of these tonnelier, which one of these wood are working well with the Chardonnay, how much new wood you want to use, and finally, after 5 vintages in 2012, I decided to add part of the aging in concrete. So that means that I'm doing the alcoholic fermentation in barrels in order to really divide all these parcels, all these different clones and type of grapes that I can harvest in the vineyard. And then after, I'm making the blend of the best of these barrels and doing the aging for another 16 months in concrete and in barrels. So we have two different kind of aging, and also this really helps me to keep the tension, not the tension in terms of structure of the wine, but the tension in terms of aromatic, very fresh.
Okay, and then you do the assemblage.
And then at the end, yes, I'm doing assemblage. I can change a little bit also. I can decide at the end, okay, let's not use 1 or 2 barrels to have enhance a little bit more the part in concrete because it lacks a little bit tension. So I can still take a decision at the end and not bottle all of the barrels, for example, or the opposite, not all of the concrete tanks. But
just to get that balance and that tension in the wine that you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it must be hugely satisfying with all these decisions, not just over 1 year, but over many years, to reach a point where a wine that you've been so passionate and involved with can win such an important award.
Yeah. It's really great pleasure to have this kind of award after this long journey. But I can tell you that also it's very nice to hear from our many clients that we have around Italy or around Europe that this Chardonnay really gives them a great satisfaction. And I can tell you that was not easy, but actually the Italian market reacts the most about this Chardonnay, and we have great success in Italy. And there is many great white wine in Italy. Definitely, I can tell you, I've been tasting lots of great wine from Alto Adige down to Sicily. There is many great white wines, and to be able to be part of them after only 15 years of the winery, and to be part of these top white wines in Italy is really a great honor. Yeah.
Yes, and a great achievement. Now, I'd like to turn to food and wine and to discussing this great Chardonnay with the food of Maremma, but also maybe with other cuisines. How is this wine enjoyed? And what are some of the dishes that you feel pair best with it?
Definitely, if you're in Maremma, you want to pair this wine with fish. We have many kind of pasta with fish, with gambero rosso, for example, red shrimp. We have many of these also fish soup that we have. There is one very famous near Livorno, which is caciucco, which is this soup with a lot of fish, which is quite intense. Sometimes also I think they put tomatoes in it, so it's quite intense soup, and it's really can stand very well with the Chardonnay. But I like also to pair the Chardonnay with white meat. So I'm French, so I can think about lapin à la moutarde, for example, mustard rabbit. That's really extraordinary.
And I imagine you must have a lot of rabbits in that macchia Mediterranean.
Yeah, lepre, so wild rabbit, yeah.
Wild hare, the lepre.
Yeah, a lot of them. Exactly.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds fabulous. And I'm imagining this richer style of Chardonnay, such a good match for that rich and hearty fish soup of Livorno.
Yes. Yeah. It matches very well with this kind of soup. And also, it's very interesting. You usually don't like to taste the wine at very low temperature. But when you taste this Chardonnay at 14, 15 degrees, also really, it's fantastic. It's really fantastic. Lots of expressivity, but in the mouth, the structure of the wine, the tension of the wines really makes you understand that, wow, it's really a wine for gastronomy.
We could have spoken about the red wines you're producing, but we've run out of time now. But I'm interested in some of the blends you're doing, Sangiovese with Garnacha, for example, which sounds very, very interesting. But we'll have to leave that for another time, Matthieu. I'd love to follow our conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time out to share the story of Monteverro, the winery, to share the story of this beautiful corner of Tuscany that is perhaps less visited with international visitors, but an area that should be visited. And of course, the story of this award-winning wine, the Monteverro Chardonnay. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a good season this year. The conditions are not too extreme, and I'll look forward to tasting your wines on another occasion. Great, thank you, and have a great day. Buona giornata. Bonne journée.
Thank you very much, Marc. It has been a pleasure for me. Merci.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.